let's kick it off. So we're thrilled to have you here today. We're going to talk about story maps, which is a really powerful way to create immersive, full content-rich websites that tell your story. And we're going to do this today through a presentation that I'm going to give, sort of that provides you with some background and tells you a little bit about us, and then a little bit about the technology, sort of introducing it, and what you need to know about how all of these apps work together in this ecosystem that Esri has created, because Story Maps is an Esri app, and then some basic steps of the workflow. And then we're going to launch into the heart of the workshop, and that's the actual exercise. And that's where where Sean is going to walk you through all of the concepts that you're going to need and really dig in to the workflow to create a story maps. So I'm going to talk just for a little bit at the beginning, and then we're going to launch into the exercise. But before we do that, I did want to let you guys know about us. We are the Informatics and GIS program, IGIS, and we're part of the University of California Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And UCANR, if you're not familiar with us, we are a network of people throughout California in cooperative extension offices, in research and extension centers, and on UC campuses. And we do everything we can to connect the power of UC research to Californians. And we do it through agriculture, natural resources, nutrition, youth development. And there's a lot of statewide programs that do this work. 4-H, you might have heard of, CalFresh, UCIPM, Integrated Pest Management. Those are all these programs that are designed to do this work. And we, IGIS, is one of those programs. And who we are these people. Myself, I'm the director of the program, and I'm going to give you your intro presentation today. You're also going to meet Sean Hogan. He's the workshop instructor today. He's also a PhD in remote sensing, all things drone. He's a terrific resource for you, and he's also our story maps, one of our story maps expert. And behind the scenes, you are going to have Shane Fire, Andy Lyons, and Robert Johnson. They are all going to be able to help you out. If you have any trouble, you can put it in chat, and one of us will get to you and try to sort out what's going on. So that's who we are. Who you are from the registrations. Sean's going to show you this. This is just a screen capture from a nice story map that he made about you. You come from all over the world, but in addition to this map, I would love it if you would put in the chat now your name, and if you want to, briefly what you hope to learn from this workshop, and then if you've got any experience with story maps, from 1 being beginner to 5 being an expert. So if I look at chat here, I'm hoping to see some of you guys flash up your info, so help us connect with you in this virtual space. So who's going to be the first? Thank you, Antonio from Brazil. Fantastic. So if you care to also put your experience level, terrific. Katie, 2.5, I love it. So a little bit more tips and tricks. Yep, that you've come to the right place. Julia, welcome. Hector, welcome. We've got some great. We've got some users of Story Map and Esri products. Shane, of course, he's another one of our Story Maps experts in IGIS. Terrific. Welcome, Rachel. Welcome, all of you. I'm going to turn my chat off, but keep them coming. We do look at this. This has been really useful. Oh, this is great, you guys. Love it. Absolutely love it. Terrific. You guys are in the right place. And like I said, this is virtual, but we welcome you from all over the world. It's really exciting. Sean is going to show you this. He did create a pretty nice story map from your registration information and highlights just this amazing worldwide reach that we've got today. And he'll show you, but this story map that he created kind of will fly you through where you all live and tell you some stories about, what's going on. So here's just a screenshot from the Northern California region. So why would you want to make a story map, or why would you want to use this story map? So story maps are content-rich websites. They display both mapping and other information with pictures and text about places. They're journalistic in style. There's multiple templates or formats to build from. You can call on multiple existing database sources in this interactive interface. You can do all of this without coding. And technically, a story map is easy to build, but there's a lot of design work that goes into this before you create them. So there's sort of a lot of material and structure you want to get in place first so that your final product is as great as you want it to be. And that's what we're going to go through today. Story maps aren't everything. They're not really good. They're not suitable for data collection. So if you're interested in creating sort of a mobile app for data collection, that's another suite of apps. Sometimes, depending on how you design them, they sometimes don't look great on mobile devices, but that is changing. And I mentioned these templates, and there's sort of these limited ways that you can create this, although this is changing. And I do want to mention that, you don't need to be a web developer to create a great story map. So if you're comfortable working within all of these constraints, we're going to rock on. So the beauty of story maps are one aspect that I find really attractive is that there's so much content you can put into these sort of immersive sites. You can put in web maps, web apps, photos and videos, text and styled text. You can do, lots with your typography. You can put in quotes. You can embed hyperlinks or embedded external websites or videos. So there are really a lot of content you're going to pull upon to create your story map. And so you want to think about this data, design, develop. You want to think about where the data is coming from and what needs to go into your map, how you're going to design it, how you're going to style it, and then develop the map. So I'm going to use this data, design, develop theme as I go through these slides. And I mentioned web maps. Web maps are some of the mapping content that you can pull in to create story maps. And web maps are basic online maps with custom symbology. So, the web map on the left, it's got a nice base map with locations of cooperative extension offices. They're styled as just as a point with different colors. The one in the middle has a different base map. It has the satellite imagery as the base map, and the one on the right, is a choropleth map with a chosen color scheme. So you can create a web map using Esri software really easy, and it's a great way to produce and present your mapping data to the world. And web maps are inputs to creating web apps. And again, I'm using this as all sort of Esri terminology. And web apps go a little bit farther than web maps. They're graphically appealing. There's a lot of layout options. They're sort of standalone sites like a dashboard, or the dashboard is this in the middle COVID-19 dashboard that launched pretty early in 2020 from Johns Hopkins, is one of these web apps that pulls mapping data, but also has graphing capability. And there's the example on the bottom has photography examples. So there's sort of a standalone page that includes some other analytics as well as maps. And then there's story maps, and story maps are just another type of web app. They're another way of interacting with mapping data on the web, but these are sort of customized through these templates to have this really purpose-driven look and feel, journalistic in style, and very content rich. a couple of examples here that our crew has been involved in making. There's a virtual tour of UC Division of Ag and Natural Resources that flies around the state and shows all of the research and extension that we're doing. And there's also a neat wildfire fuel management story map that talks about work that landowners are doing to remove fuel from their property. So all of that I just showed you, all of these web maps, web apps, and story maps was all built using ESRI software. And for those of you who are just getting started with this, ESRI is a commercial. It's a company that creates probably the most populous use of GIS software, and they have desktop and cloud-based options. We're gonna take advantage of the cloud-based option today, and that's called Arcgis Online. And Arcgis Online, or AGOL, sometimes you'll see it, is entirely in the cloud, and it links your data with a series of very powerful apps. And one of those apps is Story Maps, but there's lots of others. And through this Arcgis Online and Story Maps app, you're going to pull all that content that you want to show. Your video, your audio, your photos, your text, your other websites, all that jazz, you're going to pull in and design through Arcgis Online. Again, this data, where are you going to get it from? How are you going to design it? And how are you going to develop it? And it all relies on this Arcgis Online and Story Maps app interface. So Arcgis Online is, like I said, it's a cloud-based platform, and it's really come a long way in the last few years. It provides access to tons of data. You can have your own stuff. You can pull stuff from Esri's Living Atlas. You can pull stuff from external content. You can pull data from data collection apps. So all sorts of support for data. There's nice ways to design your end product. And then there's lots of ways to develop these websites. So this data design develop, it's all within Esri, and it's pretty powerful. Just a quick summary about what I mentioned before. So Arcgis Online is the cloud-based version of Esri. The local version that you have on your desktop and install a licensed package is called ArcGIS Pro, and you often go back and forth between the two. We're just going to stay up in the cloud today, and all of those little figures that are around that cloud are all the various apps that you can use in Arcgis Online. Things like story maps or field maps or collector. There's tons of great apps out there. And just incidentally, you can do analysis on Arcgis Online. There's much more functionality is on its way. It's very fast. It's very intuitive. It's browser-based. We do workshops that just focus on Arcgis Online, and it's a fantastic platform because you don't have to have a desktop and install, a piece of software. But if you are going to do some more heavy lifting in terms of cartography or projection control or some advanced analysis or some more heavy coding, you probably will tend to be in Pro. And we have workshops that focus on Pro too. But today we're gonna stay up in the cloud. And there's all these apps. This is just a sort of a snapshot of all the things that Esri is putting out here. There's a ton of them. A lot of them are great. Story maps we're going to use today, but we also use Experience Builder a ton and dashboards and a bunch of other stuff. So these change all the time too. Okay, so a little bit about working in the cloud. And when we use Arcgis Online or the Story Maps app, we've got lots of options to do, and we're going to talk through those. But there are some constraints. We're not free to do everything in the cloud. And so we need to think about data. We need to think about sharing. We need to think about these sort of interoperability and how do these things fit together. And then we want to think about visualization. What are the choices that we want to make everything look beautiful? And so the data, if you're familiar with GIS data locally on your desktop, you think about shape files or geodatabases. When you're talking about data in the cloud, you typically in the Esri world refer to data as data layers with associated services. And so the data layers are the data itself, a vector layer or a raster data set. And then services are the instructions for how these data can be used. Can they just be visualized? Can they be analyzed? These sorts of things. So it's just a little bit of a difference in terminology. Another thing to pay attention to when you're working in the cloud is sharing. And Esri does a good job here. Every single data set that you're going to work with has some sharing capacity attached to it. And Esri separates out sharing into, you can have it private, so only you can see a data set. You can share it with a group, and we haven't mentioned groups yet, but in Arcgis Online, your administrator can set up different groups. And so, for example, in IGIS, we have an internal group that's just us, and then we might set up a group that's just a particular project. It's a great way to organize your data. You can set sharing to just your organization, or you can say it's completely public. And so it's something to pay attention to when you start to work with data in the cloud. Another thing I'm going to introduce, and Sean's really going to go through this more, there are a couple of ways to build story maps in Arcgis Online, and one is straight in Arcgis Online, and there are templates available there. And the other is to work with the Story Maps app, and there are templates there. And I understand from Sean, speaking to him yesterday, that this is sort of changing a little bit. And so he's going to go into this in a little bit more detail, but this is pretty typical of Esri in that they often have multiple workflows to get a certain place. And so it can seem a little bit confusing, but Sean is going to walk you through his recommended journey, if you will. So stay tuned. But the gist is there are these templates, these sort of building blocks that you can work, or buildings that you can work within to create your story maps. Like I said, there's a couple different ways to do it. The first one is do everything in Arcgis Online. The second is to use the Story Maps app. But in both, I want you to think about the data, the design aspects, and the developing aspects. And Sean will walk through all of those. Quick sneak peek at the workflow here in a sort of a schematic form. You're going to be working in Arcgis Online. You're going to be creating or accessing cloud-based data, hosted web feature layers. You're going to create web maps and web apps, and those are going to be fed in to the Story Map app, in addition to the story script and the text and any other content. So you're going to be pulling this stuff into your Story Maps app to create it. I will say, I've said this just a few slides ago, that often Esri has multiple ways of doing the same thing. And this is another example. They just launched last month a site called storymaps.com. And it's sort of a stripped down light version of what you're going to do today. So if you go away from this workshop and you go Story Maps, let's look it up, and you land on this site, this is sort of a separate site that they're pushing, but it's a lot lighter, and it doesn't offer all the options that we're going to go through today. So I just wanted to mention that, yeah, there's lots of ways to do this. Okay, so that is all I have, and I'll stop share and turn it over to you, Sean.
Great. Thanks. As always, that's a perfect intro into what we'll be working on here. Some of the key things that Dr. Kelly just covered was the terminology, and I know that some of that might have kind of went past you a little bit, but there's a lot of terms that are very similar, like a web map or a web mapping application, a story map. And as we go through, I'll try to highlight what those differences are, because it's like there's sometimes you're kind of talking about the same thing, but you're really talking about elements of the final product. And so that's a point of confusion. To start with, what I really want to do is to just get you set up to make sure everybody is all their applications working well. They know what files we're going to need, that all of that, and not the least of which is how to set up your windows, because we only have so much real estate on our computer screens here, and when we have 3 or 4 things open at once, it's kind of hard to watch what I'm covering and then look at the exercise and look at the guidelines and then look at your own application as well. So I'll dive into that too. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. Good. And so earlier, you should have received, let's see, sent items earlier today. You should have received an email that looked something like this. It's important that you download the presentation and exercise material. That's the first link that you find here. You'll have the option, the download button will be up at the top right-hand corner of the screen. It's not a very large download, but it's in a zipped file. So when you get it down on your computer, you'll want to put it in a folder, probably on your C drive, and with some kind of intuitive title like Story Map Workshop or ArcGIS Story Maps, something to that effect. So you'll know where to go to your data at. If you don't happen to have a decompression software, and most computers do automatically, but I recommend 7-zip for that if you don't have it. It's a light download as well. So what I'll be doing here is kind of like let's say a soft start. I'm going to just kind of go through some of this material. It'll give you time to get set up, and while I cover some of the key information. And also I want to make sure we do a little test of your applications, and I'm referring to ArcGIS Online specifically, and story maps, just to make sure that they're working for you, because occasionally people will come from different organizations and their licenses are good for ArcGIS Online, but they don't have all the extensions for their peripheral apps that Maggie touched on, the field maps, story maps, the experience builder, all these other peripheral apps are not included in their license. So we wanted to test that out, because that's a sticking point that we've had people run into in the workshops before as well.
So this is where, if you are having any trouble with what Sean is talking about, just pop a note in the chat.
Yep. That's what great segue into what I was next going to say was, yes, we have a great team here. Shane Fire, Robert Johnson, and Andy Lyons, and Maggie. All of them are experts in elements of this. And so if you need any help, you can put your comments in the chat, and if they can't answer your questions right away in the chat, we can set up breakout rooms and take care of it either during the presentation or during one of the breaks. And I'll try to allow for enough breaks that if anybody's running into problems, then they could get solved there. One thing is the exercise, it doesn't necessarily build strictly upon itself. Yes, if you make through every step, your final product will look nicer. But if for any reason something isn't working for you, and then you just jump to where we're working on it next, it's not a problem. We intentionally designed the workshop exercise that way, knowing that people might have glitches. With that said, the story map builder that we'll be using is not glitch free at all yet. It's hopefully it will improve, especially as it is updated with some of the templates of the classic ways of building story maps that I'll kind of touch on briefly, but they'll But anyways, there'll be glitches while we go through this. So first, download the material, unzip it. It has to be unzipped for the stuff to work today. And then we already have the Zoom information. Make sure that you have your ArcGIS Online licenses with the Story Map Builder extension included in there. Good. I'm going to close that so I don't have beeps going on. This will be the package that you download, and I'm just going to do that right now. I'm going to download it just the same way that you would do it. Download anyways. It's not harmful. And I'm going to go find that, show in folder. I'm doing this fresh because I want to set up a folder just like you have. So when I'm going through the steps, you can see my steps look just like yours. I've done this exercise so many times. I have redundant folders on top of other folders. So I want to start this all fresh. So I'm going to cut this out, go into my PC, to my C drive. I'm going to create a folder, new folder. And again, it'd be something to the effect of ArcGIS story maps. Workshop. Doesn't have to be exact. So, good. Enter. I'll put that file in there, paste it. I have 7-zip, so I'm going to extract it here. Hopefully a lot of you have done this already. You should have received that email at about 11:30. Again, it's a pretty light download. Once it's downloaded and unzipped, probably want to delete the zip file so we don't get confused with that. So now we're set up, and I want to give you an overview of what kind of data we're looking at here. So we'll have the workshop media. One of the biggest things about designing story maps is putting all of your content or collecting all of the content that you need to create the story map. The actual practice of building the story map is pretty easy, honestly. It's the getting all of the media and all of the text, be kind of like journalistic text or hyperlinks, whatever the case is, having all of that content put together and organized. So some of that is, well, of course, we've done all this for you. Otherwise, this 3-hour workshop would be about 2 or 3 days, because it's we don't need you to be going in looking for videos and pictures the whole time when the actual effort or the steps are more important. One thing that we've done also, and this is really important, you'll see, at least on mine, it's the 3rd one down, but it's the UCANR Story Maps Visualization and Organization app or document. Open that right now. I already have it open, so it's on the right side of my screen. And I'll pull it over for now. This is going to include a whole bunch of text, and this will make more sense once we get going, but it includes the titles, the subtitles, the headings, and what you'll get very used to today is Control-C and Control-V, or copy and paste. So we can copy and paste the titles over, and then we don't have to spend the whole time typing throughout the workshop, where we can just be copying and pasting. One thing, though, that is just a forewarning, and I mentioned the glitches, and I hope they would have corrected this, but they haven't. When you copy and paste from a Word document like we have here, well, in many other documents, it'll come in kind of funky. There'll be like returns that shouldn't be there, so you'll have to kind of rearrange the text a little bit sometimes. It's particularly say annoying when it comes to bullet points. And one of the ways around that, if you would like, you can open yourself a notepad and then copy and paste the text from the Word document into the notepad, and then copy it from the notepad into the story map as we're building it. And that tends to get rid of most of those problems. It's just a little tip ahead of time on it I want to throw out there. So again, this is going to be all of the written content. It also has hyperlinks. It cues you when you need to put in a JPEG image, for example, and it's all set up here to create the whole story map we'll be working on today. If you have this open, what I recommend, at least this is the way it works best for me after some trial and error, is I put over on the right side of my screen almost all the way up to the top and the bottom. And the reason for that is then I can just click from, say, my center pane here and back over to this when I want to toggle back and forth between the two different views, hoping that the zoom window is not also in the way. Good. So back to the file that we just created. I have too many of these open, maybe. Yeah, that's the one. Good. So this is the visualization and organization document. Another one that's in here is the UCANR Rec Center CSV file. And I'll open this right now. Hopefully you have Excel or Google Sheets you can view this on. And what we're looking at here are the research and extension centers that are managed by the Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources, the UC. So the UCANR is kind of a unique kind of segment of the UC system, is in that we have specialists often that have dual appointments, such as Dr. Kelly, that's also a professor at UC Berkeley. We have farm advisors, natural resource advisors throughout the 59 counties of California, but we also have 9 research and extension centers that do all kinds of different research, from mostly agriculture and natural resource type of research, some rangeland stuff on a couple of them. And this document here has each of these research centers, as well as the address, the city, the state, and the zip code. And then the address is all combined into one column. What we're going to use this for is to plug it into our Arcgis Online to create content as a backdrop, kind of a backbone for the story map, this being the map element of the story map. And we'll see how this works. But I wanted to show you what was there just so you know what we're looking at. I'm going to close that now. Don't change. Good. And this is a survey of who is attending. Good. All right. You'll also find in there the workshop exercise. I have mine open in a Google Doc. That way I can make little subtle changes as we go along in case I notice like a typo, for example, or a way that it could be improved. But you'll have the workshop exercise included in the zip file or after it's been unzipped, and then the presentation that Dr. Kelly just gave. Finally, inside the workshop media, I touched on that before, there's pictures and videos, all of which we'll be putting into our story map. Good. By the way, I would recommend just leaving this open right now, because we'll be able to drag and drop these into the story map as we go. So if I just reduce it, I can always go back and restart that. I'm going to close out some of my other things so it's easy to pop back up. Good, like that. All right, now arranging your screen. What I prefer, and everyone has their own preferences, is I like to have the exercise on the left side of my screen. This is not the exercise. This is the visualization document. Oh, it's because I had it open twice. I see. I don't need this then. There we go. Here we have the exercise on the left side of the screen. Leaf down to slightly lower than the one in the center, and then a little bit lower than the one on the right that is the organizational document. Sometimes people like to, especially if you're already fairly skilled with story maps, you might be able to just jump ahead by reading through the document. I'll do most of this by memory. There's some things that are in here that I won't talk about. Some things that I'll talk about aren't in here, but are kind of like the pro tips for how you might go about certain things. And so but for the most part, the exercise steps that we'll take they'll be the same thing what I present to you as well as what's in the written document. What we'll start off with is what we're covering right now, the what type of organization, what kind of data that we're working with. And then after we get done with this, we're going to, in the next hour, we will dive into content creation in ArcGIS Online. And this is not an ArcGIS Online workshop, so I'm not going to get into too much of the nitty gritty about the ArcGIS Online or AGOL. That's another workshop unto itself. But there are a couple little things that are important there, particularly because your spatial data content is all kept there. ArcGIS Online is kind of your hub for data when it comes to story maps, not referring to the text and the imagery so much, even though it is much of that is also stored in AGOL's kind of repositories. I digress. So we will touch on some parts of ArcGIS Online, particularly when it comes to the peripheral apps, just as a kind of like an idea of how those interrelate with both AGOL and with story maps. Well, that'll include taking that address file that I showed you and creating a map, a basic map of where the research centers are throughout California. And because we'll be using that for the story map. And we'll cover that sort of material. Then starting in the next, roughly, that'll take like 20 minutes. We'll take a break. Then we'll dive into the next step is the designing of your story maps. So setting up kind of templated design formats. And this is really nice that you can do this in the story map builder. Speaking of terms that are kind of, sometimes Esri doesn't seem to make up their mind what they want to call something. Sometimes it's just called the Story Maps app. Sometimes it's called the Story Maps Builder. So you'll see that there isn't a space between story and map sometimes. Sometimes there is. There's some inconsistency, but what I'm talking about here is the Story Map Builder, the Story Map app are synonymous. And within that, then you'll have a bunch of design options that haven't been available in the past, at least not as easily set up as they are now. So we'll get into how to create a design that might be appropriate for your organization. We've suited ours after our communication technology group that publishes California Agriculture. So we have a kind of color template that we use for this workshop, and that I can also refer to if I want to create another A&R themed story map. So here we'll go through all these settings. Again, there'll be a lot of cutting and copying and pasting. Not only will you copy and paste from the organizational document, but there's a bunch of hex codes, for example, in the exercise where we'll be copying and pasting those to our story map in the center. And after we get done with the design, the last hour will be dedicated to the exercise for creating your story map. That's where we're going to really be copying and pasting a lot of the content from the organizational document. So, and that's the longest, and I wouldn't call it tedious. There's a lot of repetition that we'll get used to, and that repetition will kind of get you very used to the workflow of creating not just a story map, but also many other web mapping applications. So story maps are a web mapping application. It's very similar to what you might expect in a standalone web page. It just has different kind of templated, kind of rich sort of characteristics about it that are appealing. So that'll be the last section. And we'll leave a little, hopefully we'll have some good time at the end if anybody has questions and comments. One more thing here before we take a break is that I want to show you a couple web maps. One being what we'll be working toward. So by the way, this link is at the top of your organizational document. sometimes it's nice to look at what you're trying to work toward, so then you can remember, oh yeah, this map should be floating to the left, or this one should be the right. It should consume the whole page. So I just want to show you what we'll be working toward right here. So if at the beginning, again, there'll be the view that you see, and as it comes up, you'll have navigation options that you can jump to different sections of the document. We'll see kind of breaks that are set up with either imagery or dots. As we go on here, I should expand the screen, because having it condensed like this is not as nice. We have a Round Me 3D drone image that was taken at Kearney. This is going to be a Kearney Agricultural Research and Extension Center focused story map with some extra information about the rest of the research centers. But you can see how it's the interactivity of it is really pleasing, where you can have embedded videos, embedded 3D models, pictures, and then maps. The final part is very similar to the story map tour, which I'm going to bring up in just a moment, that Maggie presented at the beginning. And here, what we can look at is information about each of our research and extension centers just by scrolling across, and it'll hop you to that different area. And so we'll be able to set this all up, including with hyperlinks. So if I click on one of these, it's going to launch that a page for that that particular research center. Good. So this will be what we're working toward. And lastly, before we take a break here in a moment, what I'm going to do is bring up, and oh dang it, did I not, I didn't save it right here. Oh, one thing I should mention before, I just brought this up just as an example. So we're working with the story map. So here's another example. There's classic story maps with a space between story and maps. So in this template, these are the classic ways that we used to create story maps. I really like some of these. I really hope that they incorporate all the functions and the ease of building story maps, in particular the Cascade, the story map journal. There's a couple other ones that are just, they're very pleasing and easy to build. Those haven't been entirely built into the story map builder yet. Hopefully that's coming sometime soon. Unfortunately, they're also just deprecated them. They've stopped including them in Arcgis Online as an option, which is a bummer, because they're sometimes you want a different style, but you can still find this. And if anybody needs the link to getting to the old way of doing the story maps, that they're still available for at least a short period of time. So let's bring up the story map, and the best way I can do that is just check in my sent email to, there we go. Good. So this is using the same story map builder that we had before. We have a very diverse group of people here today. This is amazing. I know that not everyone's able to attend, especially with time change differences. A lot of people will register because not only well, they will be able to come sometimes, but also to get on the email list to receive notifications for our YouTube channel videos. Because again, this well, we provide content in a lot of different ways, one of which is the workshops like this, and we also have a YouTube channel that's becoming quite popular. We also have office hours, by the way, on Mondays and Tuesdays. So if we're going through this and there's something that you just don't quite get, or if you have other geospatial technology questions, we can help you out with that. And I digress. So here's a story map of where the participants that have registered for this workshop come from. And you can see it's from all over the world, 8 different countries and 3 different states. So a lot of people from Northern California. I didn't put a separate tab for every place. Everything from Redding to Ukiah to the Sacramento area and Davis, where I'm at. We have the Greater Bay Area. Greater Southern California area, from Carlsbad, from Roseville, Minnesota, from Collingwood, Ontario, Canada, Dublin, Ireland, Iran, Algeria, Takoradi, Ghana, Cape Town, Curitiba in Brazil, and Lima, Peru. And then, so here we got, yeah, that's where the workshop participants came from. Just a little, but I'll throw this in the chat right now. If anybody wants to look at it while we take a break, we'll take like a 9-minute break, and then we'll jump into starting with ArcGIS Online. Any questions? There's few enough of us. If you want to unmute and ask your questions, that's fine. If there's a large group, that gets tricky. But for now, with this small of a group, we can field questions. And again, I'm putting this in the chat. I like the range of skill levels for this workshop. This is good. The Story Maps app is different. I say that I might be 3. I might be generous and say that some days I'm like a 2 when it comes to story maps. Some days I feel like a 5. It just depends on which application I'm working with. I used to work with CartoDB as well, but then showed up to a workshop and they completely jettisoned the old format and created a new one just for the day of the workshop, and nothing was the same. So there's that day I was like a 1. Some days it's good. All right, so we'll take a break until 2 p.m. So about 8 minutes. Again, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, let's get up and stretch our legs, because this want to have a relaxed Friday afternoon. All right, let's get started again. Everybody doing well? Again, throw any questions, comments, thoughts in the chat, and someone will help you out. And I can look at the chat after I go through some of the workshop material at different points, but usually I'll have too many windows open to have the chat open as well. So one of my colleagues will relay those questions to me or answer in the chat. All right, so hopefully everyone got set up with their ArcGIS Online account per the preparatory emails that went out this week. And so what we'll want to do first is log into ArcGIS Online. And to do that, just type in ArcGIS Online login. It recognizes automatically for me. And then I will usually go down to sign in. If I just go to the first one, it'll give me a blue page and I have to click the sign in, and it just adds a step. So hopefully you'll have your username that was set up. Many of you I know already have your accounts. I recognize the names from previous emails or previous workshops. That's what happens when I type and talk at the same time. Good. I mentioned before that this isn't really an ArcGIS Online workshop, so it's not going to, or I'm not going to dive into this too deeply, but I do want to show you where there are some of the functions here. When mine first comes up, it automatically goes to my organization, but we don't need to worry about that. Most importantly, we'll be working with our content. So everybody, I'm going to give you a second, would log into your ArcGIS Online. Just Google search ArcGIS Online login and get to here. One of the things I've noticed in the past while doing this workshop is it's really easy to just jump from one step to the next step and understand and forget that everybody has to not just follow along, but also find which window they need to be on with 3 or 4 windows open at once again. So once you get into your ArcGIS Online, go to your content. And in here, you're going to find all kinds of material. You'll find story maps, story map themes. This is like a library of all of the data that you collect or you curate over time. One of the ways that I like to set it up in kind of an organized structure is create folders on the side. You can click on this to create a folder. If you're new to this, you won't have too much content yet, so you don't have to really worry about this. But you might see me putting it into the IGIS training folder, just so I know where to quickly go and find past like story maps from previous workshops or other training related material like features and that sort of thing. So it kind of builds up over time, and having this set up is really nice. You'll see there's all kinds, again, different types of data that we have here. So there's story maps, web mapping applications, shape files, hosted feature layers, or shape files, instant app. There's tons of different files. If you find one that's really important to you, you can add it to your favorites, and sometimes that it makes it easier for you to go and look for your content later on. It's another way, kind of similar to putting it in a file folder over here. So, and then you could just toggle to your favorites if there's, say, so for one of my workshops, I put some fire data in one because I was reusing it a lot. So just know that the content is important. We'll come back to this in a moment, just because this is where you create new items and create new apps. One other thing we'll come back to is this little cluster at the top, but this is a test right now. So if you're here, click on this little, we'll come back to it, but click on this. And if you don't see a whole bunch of different apps like this in your dropdown, then email or put in the chat that you don't have these apps, and either Shane Fire or Robert Johnson will help set you up with a fresh license that will have full access. So this is one of the things I noticed in a previous workshop. A couple people just didn't have all of these options. So check that right now. If you don't see those, again, put it in the chat. Good. Maggie mentioned before that you can set up groups where you can share certain content or web mapping applications or even story maps just with groups of people. This is particularly useful when you're working with something like field maps, where you might have a group of people that are trained in collecting the kind of data that you want collected, and you only want to share it with them because you don't want to crowdsource it to too many people that might put in, like, say, wrong terms, or I don't know, misinterpret the data they're trying to collect. So we have a core team, Cal Naturalist, all these different groups, and there's one that's in here for IGIS as well. So these are groups. I'll show you another option later on how to share it between groups, your organization, or just completely open to the public. We'll skip the rest of these. Gallery is kind of interesting because it has content from the organization that I'm just going to point out to you. If you want anything that UCANR is collected and you have an ANR organizational account, then all of this is at your fingertips, as well as a whole bunch of data through Arcgis Online and Living Atlas. A different way of going about it. Lastly, I'm going to jump to map, because this is where we're going to start creating our content. And remember the ANR locations file that we had, that I showed you before? What we'll want to do is open up the workshop media folder. Well, here I have to go up one level. Go to the story map workshop folder that you created, probably on your C drive. Hopefully somewhere that's easy to find, not like buried like 10 levels down under your documents, under your user documents, but have it go to this folder. And once everybody's there, I want you to go over to the left on your screen and click content. By the way, if your screen is too crunched like this, content won't be showing. You have to stretch it out a little bit for content to appear. That's the second one over from the left. So right in the center in the left pane of your window. bring up the folder here, and all I'm going to do is grab this. So it should have like an Excel looking icon there for you to grab this CSV file and drag and drop it over here. And what it'll do is automatically give you add CSV layer. And this is usually, and not always, this is another thing that some people's licenses kind of glitches here. But almost always for me, it automatically recognizes what fields should be related. So the field name and the location name, not used, not necessary, but the address being the most important thing. Address is the address or place, city is the city, state is state. So they all match up nicely. And when I click add layer, this layer should pop up on the map that we're seeing here. You can also see a temporary legend that's down along the left-hand side. These are color-coded right now for unique symbols, but they're barely visible. They're very tiny the way they automatically pop up. So what we'll do is just change the symbology right now. They're the style. And the way to do that, so again, we drug in the CSV file, dropped it into the content, then just accepted the defaults. And once that you've done that, this is where we're at. And then we'll click options on the first one, the unique symbols. The reason why I wanted to click on that is because the default colors they might not be ideal, but they're okay. But what we really want to do is change all of the symbols by clicking. There's this little kind of flag looking thing up at the top right hand corner of the pane. Click on that. And we're going to change the symbol size to something more like 20. And click OK. Now you can actually see more easily where each of these research centers are at. Good. Then we'll go down, click OK. And one more time, we'll click done. So there we've done it. We've created some content. But that's great, but we still need to save it and make sure the settings are correctly set up for what we're doing next. And the way we do that is we go up to save, click the drop down and click save as. So by default, it's going to automatically save it just into your primary folder. I'm going to switch mine to the IGIS training just so I know where it's at. And then I'm going to refer to the exercise directions. And I'm going to scroll down because this is actually close to the bottom. There we go. Down at on page 9, 3.13. To copy over this text right here, UCANR Story Map Workshop. Control C for copy. And we can just drop that title in there. The reason why I like using the title from the text is it just makes it a bit easier to find those files later in the exercise when it says, okay, go to UCANR Story Map Workshop map. But the thing is I've done this workshop so many times that I need to add an extension on it because I just did V7 this morning. So I'm going to go V8. You won't need to do that in your own setup or your own saving. One thing you do need to do though, so again, I'm going to back up just a second. Go to your workshop directions. Down on page 9, it's bolded in red. Copy and paste the name there. Paste it into the saved name. And now we have to add tags. And I'm going to put in here just training for now. If it doesn't automatically pop up with a name like it did for me, then you can you just finish typing and then click enter. Some people have trouble with that. I'm also going to do this, junk, and then I'm going to just click enter. The reason why I did that is because I need to clean out my folder one of these days pretty soon, and I can do a keyword search for all the files that have junk in the tags, and that way I can go through and clean those out because those are redundant files that are repeats. Good, but you always have to have tags. This is important because not only does it make it easier for other people to find your layers, if you assuming that you've shared it with either your organization, your groups, or just to everybody, but it's also really nice to be able to find your own data. Again, why I put junk in there to be able to isolate this specific file and then do what I want with it. And then once that's done, I click Save Map. Now, before we go on, I want to show you something it's not in the directions, but it's interesting and important, is how to share your content. And not just share it, but with who you share it and different ways that you could share it. Right now, I don't care. This is not sensitive data, so I can put everyone. So it'll share with everybody out there. Here's a list of the groups that I belong to. I could share it with no one, or just to myself, or I could select members of a given group. Like, I don't know, some random group here, but it's okay to share it with everybody for right now. Again, if this was some kind of sensitive information, maybe, I don't know, I always refer to one really, really delicate case of a project I knew someone was working on at UC Davis that involved domestic violence data, that they had to go to extreme measures for good reason to keep it, to not share it with too many people. That would be kind of an example of when you need to be very cognizant of how data is shared. But once this is shared with everybody, what we can do is we can click done, but don't do that yet. You can click done and it would just save the map. But what I want to do is go a step further and show you some of the web mapping applications that can come from this web map. What we just created here behind the screen that we're looking at, this is a web map, but it's not a full-fledged web mapping application that can have kind of widgets, it can have legends and all these other things built into it. So to get to that, we can click on Create a Web App. And I mentioned before that the classic story maps have been deprecated. Those used to be here. You used to be able to put those in this section and include and create like a cascade map. Here's an example of what you used to be able to do, is create something like this. This is a cascade map that I looked up on the break. So now you have to go to the classic viewer, like, no, that's not the one. The one I showed you earlier, the classic templates, to be able to create something like this. Granted, a lot of this functionality is built into the story maps builder that we'll be using today. But I'm going to go back to here. One of the reasons why I want to show you this is that you can create web mapping applications that you can then put inside of your story map. And for example, I'm going to bring up the web app builder. Just give it a little bit of an extension. You don't need to do this. This is just kind of info only right here. If you want, you can. It won't hurt. And I'm going to get started. And why I bring this up is because you can create more dynamic maps that you can put within your story map that you can bring in later if you feel so inclined, where you can have different themes that you decide to go with that look different. You can set up widgets. There's a ton of them. Then there's more than just what's seen right here. You can add in widgets. You can add in more attributes, different map panes. There's all kinds of different, you can have, again, the widgets like infographics, you name it. You could save this and include it in your story map instead of just the web map. But for the sake of simplicity, and because that's a whole nother workshop, that I'm going to back out of this. So I just click back to get back to my story map. Good. Just know that those are there. Good. Now, save often, save frequently. There's I always click save before I go and do anything. It's already saved. I'll go back to share, make sure that the share is set up correctly, and then just click done. And now I'm going to back up out of here. Before, I know you probably don't recall, but before there was a horizontal ribbon of options across the top, but now all that horizontal ribbon is on a drop down under home. What we'll do is go back to content. Mention that we'd be coming back to this. Now that we have some content to work with, this file should be at the top of my list, somewhere close. There's let's see, it would be in my IGIS training. It probably is in the top of your content here. So I have this web map that I just created. So V8, it's at the top. We don't need to do anything with this right now, but if you needed to change settings again later, you can click on that. You can, this is info only again, and I can go in and set up my sharing settings here. We had this happen in one of the last workshops. One of the versions of the map wasn't full. All the features within the story map weren't shared. And so when we sent it out to all the participants, no one could get into it because it wasn't shared the right way. So I'm going to back up again to here. So again, now we're in content, under content. And we can click on two things to start our story map builder. One, we can click create app. So you see there's the web app builder. We saw that earlier in where we went from the sharing options under map. There's story maps. That's what we'll be using today. We could click on this, but don't yet, because I want to show you the other way that I like to do it more easily there. In that, experience builder is really nice too, just as a heads up. But I like to go all the way up to the top and click on this cluster. You can drag and drop these icons in whatever order, and they're more or less in the order that I like to use them up at the top. This is something that is nice to know, is that before you start, this is kind of like just a quality of life thing if you're working on this stuff really diligently, is that you have ArcGIS Online, which we're already working in. And you might ask, why would I want to have an ArcGIS Online link from ArcGIS Online? And here is why. If I click on this, it's going to open a new tab to my ArcGIS Online. They can just set idle there. And now I can go back to my first session and go to story maps. So go back, click on the story maps now. Now I can have another tab that I can refer to my content and go to my story maps, and I can close the extra ArcGIS Online session for now. But if I needed to make a change to my map that's underlying my story map, I have to go back to ArcGIS Online to do that. So having an extra tab there to go to sometimes is useful. So I'm going to close actually both of these right now. So we just add our ArcGIS Online. I'm going to click on the drop down and click story maps, just so everybody is on the same page here. So everybody, it'll look a little different for you just because these are recent story maps that I've worked on. You, in all likelihood, don't have anything in here yet, but that's fine. And this is, from here, we're going to get going with a new story, but first we're going to build a design template that we'll be working from. There's just as a little orientation of what you have available to you, you have collections that you can have grouped your stuff together in, which I haven't done, kind of like creating the breakout folders of collections of stories. When there's too many of them, I should probably start thinking about doing that. There's themes. I have a whole bunch of themes. That's what we're going to work on next. And that's where I want you to click right now, is on themes. And we'll just stop there. I want to give you about a 5-minute break before I jump into the next step. And we'll actually, about 5 minutes. and then we'll build a theme for our story map for today. But I wanted to leave a minute or two also before that to see if anyone has any questions. I'll go to the chat. Good. How's the speed? Is this a good speed? Is everyone able to follow along? I know it's, sometimes I repeat myself. I'll say, do this, and then I'll go back and I'll say, do this. I'll repeat what I just said. Hopefully that's okay. The speed is okay. Good. It's not too much trouble trying to toggle between all these screens and listen to me and see what I'm doing. Oh, someone asked, do you have to use a CSV file? Yes, I believe you do. You do have to use a CSV file for Arcgis Online. So, which, I mean, otherwise you have to just convert it and bring it up. The idea being that you can't have a full Excel document because then you can have multiple tabs and then I wouldn't know how to interpret that, the multi-layer effect.
Sean, if I can add real quick, you're
Yes.
right. You can't use CSV, but there is an option outside of the map to actually use like an Excel spreadsheets and Google Sheets and stuff like that.
Oh, right. Yes, actually, that's a good point. We have that in the Arcgis Online workshop that we covered that. I have just a kind of optional section on how do you bring in Google Sheets. So if you're interested in that, all of our workshops are on our IGIS YouTube channel. All right, let's get going again. Pretty good to go? Let me jump in the exercise and drag it down to the right section. This. Okay. For this section, I am going to slide this over to the right just a little bit more and rearrange my Zoom window so I can see everything appropriately, because I'm going to be toggling between the story map builder and the workshop exercise quite a bit. Even though I'm doing a lot of this from memory, I don't remember all the hex codes, for example, and even some of the subtle differences in the naming conventions and the as well as the what kind of icons and settings we want in the theme template. So good. So now we're here in our story maps application. It originally came in here where it shows stories, but we're going to click on themes. Go down. Hopefully everybody's back from stretching their legs. So we're under themes. We're going to go and click on new theme. Oh, by the way, whenever you see that that little icon in the center, whether it's publishing or switching between screens, don't close when you do that. It's I don't know if they fix this, but for example, if you publish a file and or publish a story map and it's running through its steps and you close out of it, like if you're in a hurry, for example, you'll come back and it might not work whatsoever. It'll be you'll have to start over again. So that's just a heads up. Maybe they fix that, but I don't know. So it's anyhow, so what we'll do is we'll go and we'll create a new theme. In the center of the screen, you'll see just an example of text. And the changes we'll be making will be reflected here on the text that we're looking at as we progress through these theme template settings. What I will do is I'm going to go and first find the name. So we'll start a new story. Oops, how far am I? Oh, we'll come back to this. Okay, good. Design. Good. Oh shoot, this is a little different workflow. That's all right. So actually, let's back up. This is slightly different workflow than going through themes this way. We'll go back to the stories. Sorry for the workaround here. We're instead of in themes, we'll go to stories. We'll click on new story from scratch. We'll end up coming back to the themes. I was just getting slightly ahead. So launching the story builder. And here we're going to go up and click on design. So there's another way to get back to those themes that I was getting at before. When this comes up, we're going to have a couple different options. There's minimal, side by side, and full, and we'll click full on the design here. So this is going to be the design of our story map. And then we'll also want to toggle on navigation. I'm going to go to the screen here. I'll scroll down just a little bit. I'm going to go to design again. You have to click design if it narrows down. If I click on navigation, you'll see a navigation banner appear below the initial title and introduction part of your story map. So we want to have that. What that'll do is kind of like a bookmark that you can jump to the next sections if that's what the interest of the viewer is. Good. And then below this, we'll see themes. And we'll see just a few themes that are available here, but we're going to skip past this for now and go down to logo. And so what we'll do is we'll upload a logo. Click on the upload logo, and well, it went by default to the last place that I was looking at my content. You're going to probably have to navigate to your workshop media folder. I'll give you a minute to do that. Mine automatically went there. Otherwise, I'd have to go to C drive to the story maps workshop, media, and then we would be there. And what you'll see is down on the left-hand corner, you'll see an image type, PNG. I just discovered this today. I don't know why I didn't know this before, but PNG files seem to work a little better than JPEGs. They just, I don't know why they fit into the maps and they don't get distorted as easily. So usually you might want to think about just trying to bring in PNGs if you can. But we'll click on the UCANR logo. If they just show up in like in the details, you might want to set this pane to be large icons. It makes it a little bit easier to spot what you're looking for. We'll click on the UCANR logo, click open, and that will appear down in your logo here. So look below this though. Now we have a logo link. And so the logo is you can see it now. It has appeared on the top left-hand corner of my screen. I'm going to go up in here. Speaking of finding the right links, let's see where that was at. Starting map, design, publish, full, option.
Hey, Sean, there's a question there's a question about why you shared it as public.
Yes. Well, that's going to come down to the end. That wasn't critical that people did do that. I just turned it on to public just because I want to be able to share it with anybody in the group here, I don't want to have to set up. I know that not everybody here might not have a UCANR organizational account.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's a point of preference, I think, in circumstance.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It's not critical either way. Good. Okay, here we go. So down on the bottom of page 12, that's what I was looking for, it's in red. I actually intentionally for this workshop turned the key terms that I needed to be able to copy and paste to red. So I'm going to take the HTTPS UCANR.edu. I'm going to Control C, and below logo on the design down here on the bottom, we're going to put Control V and drop that in there. Just as a habit, it's a good idea to get used to clicking enter after you put in a hyperlink in the story map builder, because if you don't, sometimes they don't work. So I clicked enter. You can also put in alternative text. The reason for that is because well, a couple of reasons. One reason is that if someone is visually impaired and they're using a text reader, it will interpret logos and other things. They'll get that information with for that group of people. But also sometimes if it's on a cell phone or a small device, then the logo won't show up right. And so it'll just, you want to have an alternative text so it's just not a blank spot.
Hey, Sean, this is Rachel. I got somebody distracted me for like 10 seconds and I don't know where you are because I'm on this is your story's title still. And then you jumped back and went somewhere else to put a title.
Oh, I understand. Yes. Okay. Go up.
I don't know where so I don't know how I lost you.
Here, 1 second. I'll show you. Okay. This is set. By the way, one of the things that's, I guess it's good in some ways, but it's also annoying at other times, is everything automatically saves as soon as you do it in Story Map Builder. So where I was at is I was just back at here. I went into stories, clicked on here. I created a new story. This is my new story that I just created. And I don't think I put in the title. Where is the create? From scratch.
So why doesn't my desktop show the same thing as yours there? Title your story. I see. Okay.
It doesn't. You don't see this. Oh, show up. Oh.
I just see on the left. I see colors, typography, buttons, quotes, and then I say this is your story's title. But I don't see that. What you have there. How did you get into there? That's where I lost you.
So I think this is where, so once you clicked on stories, create new story,
Okay.
go to design and click the far right full option. If it comes in, it looks like that, it'll look that way. If you click over here onto the right for full, is that where you're at?
I just have it says, this is, I clicked on, new story and it says, this is your story's title. And then on the left, it says colors, typography, buttons, quotes, links, separators, logos. Maybe I can go into.
Oh, I know where you're at. Okay. So you're ahead of me here. So for anyone else that happens to have this happen, it's because you're on themes and you did a new theme instead of a new story. So you have to back up.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I get it now.
Okay,
thank you. Start a story. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Got it.
Good. All right. So now we're back to design. And this is actually going to bring us right back where you were just at. And by the way, Rachel, don't worry if you missed the logo part. It's a really not a big part. In fact, I sometimes just leave it off when I create a story map. But just the idea that you can put a logo in down there. The next step though is manage my themes. So I'm going to click on this. And then this is going to pop up into my theme options. This is where we were at before. And now we'll click a new theme. And this is right where where you were just at. So we just kind of made a circle back to the same place. But we queued up the story map that's going to be associated with this very shortly. Good. So once we are in the theme builder, so we are going to create new theme. Here I'm getting down to the hex codes. Good. The colors. So here we're going to drop down the colors, and the background color and the header color can remain white. So the first two defaults are fine. So is everybody good on this? So we're in the theme builder now. The accent color, though, we're going to want to change. So if we look over into the directions under 5.7, there is a hex code under the third dot down. Control C. And I'm going to do right next under the color. Now back onto the center screen. I'm going to do the drop down. You have to roll a little bit and Control V over the hex code on the bottom, and it'll shift the color a little bit. So the accent, then you can see on the screen the button color changed a little bit because that's one of the accents. And then after this, click above it on the black area or the dark area to reduce it. Now we're going to do the same thing with the next two optional accent colors. So what I'll do is go down to color 1, Control C. Good. Go back over here, drop down, Control V. Let's click a little bit above it and then do the second one, but we get a Control C first. And then Control V. Scroll down a little. So if you're not familiar with hex code, just as a heads up, there's a really neat online application called Color Brewer that you can refer to find all kinds of color templates that are both colorblind friendly. They have different types of accenting colors. You can have graduated or discrete color templates that I'd say they've scientifically discerned were good for a lot of scenarios. So there's yeah, Color Brewer is a really great option. That information is included in the exercise directions somewhere. Good. So once you've added in under 5.7 the 3 hex codes in order, doing the drop down of the colors next to it, then we'll move on to the typography. So under typography, we'll do the drop down. The default, and this might just be because it was the last thing I used, is Avenir Next, which is fine, but we want to change the color of the text. So under 5.8, I'm going to Control C, the hex code there. Under the drop down next to it, now instead all the way to the right of Avenir Next, I'll paste this in here and click out of it just above. The next one down for paragraph and below, we're going to make those black. So Avenir Next is the blue, but these next two, the paragraph and the caption text, we're going to make those black. So click the top left options for these two. Okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit here because I know toggling back and forth between these is not the easiest thing in the world, but we're on 5.8 and we're copying and pasting the text here. And then in the same section, then we use for the paragraph text and the caption text here, we just made those two black. What you'll see too, and I don't know if you notice, over on the right side, the elements or the text types of text, for example, a title or heading, will be changing to the blue, while the paragraph and the caption text will change on this and the preview to the right. Good. Now moving down to button, scroll down to buttons here and do the drop down. We're going to go with the center button, the rounded edge rectangle. And we're going to use a custom color. So we'll click the radial box for that. And below, let's see, yes. Oh wait, no radial box. I'm getting ahead. So buttons, we'll just leave the button, the default. So no custom color. The reason for that is it's going to actually use the one of the accent colors, the second accent color by default. We don't need to redundantly change that. So then going on to quotes. So all we did is do the center, the rectangle with slightly rounded corners. Now we'll go to quotes. The default, which is the first one, is fine, but this time we do want to use a custom color. And that is down on 510 on the directions. Control C. And with the drop down, scroll a little bit, Control V, click out. And then you see over here on the right, and again, I can't help appreciate how this looks just like what you'd see in California Agriculture, the UCANR publication, as far as the colors and the layout. Good. Now I'm going to scroll down through the directions a little bit further and get to the separators. So we'll skip links. That's defined the way it is at the default, but the separator, we'll do the drop down on that and click the 3 diamonds. You'll see that they appear. I'm going to toggle between a couple just to see how the separator up on the screen changes. And the 3 diamonds is quite nice, I think. We want to use a custom color on this one, specifically under 511. Control C. Custom color and the drop down, and Control V. How is this as far as a workflow? Is it pretty easy to toggle between the screens and listen and get these colors moved over? I said that the exercise would be kind of with a soft start where we go over information more, but then progressively as we go through the exercise, you'll see more and more copying and pasting, and then it gets a little more complicated where we're bringing in media and different text elements that we'll all fill in. But yeah, this is hopefully this is good practice, if nothing else, for getting used to toggling from one screen to the next. Good. And then the logo, we don't need to worry about that. That one can stay as default. Good. And now we are done with the theme, but you know what? We need to name this theme. Let me see if there was a name that was that we decided we were going to use for this. I've used a whole bunch of names for them. So under 5.4, there's A&R Communications. This doesn't have to be the label. It'll be really easy and intuitive. But at the top of page 12, there's A&R Communications is the theme, is what we're going to title this. I missed that a little bit earlier. I have to do, again, V8, I think, because I've done it that many times. But you can just do A&R Communications. This doesn't matter. You can just call it your A&R theme or whatever you feel like. The label on this is important. It'll automatically be obvious later on. Good. And once that's done, then we'll go up to the top and click Publish. So at the very top. And you can share it at different levels. You can do it in private, everyone, whatever the case is. This doesn't matter too much. It's only a theme. So I'm just going to publish it as private. Good. All right. So how's that going for you? Anybody having any trouble? I'm going to check the chat real quick. So I see there's a couple comments. Oh, cool. Maggie put in the color brewer. Good. Oh, okay. Can you go back? That was one of the things I kind of got at earlier, where it automatically saves your progress as you go. There is no back button. And that, by the way, is one of the reasons why we need this organizational document, because not only does the story map builder not have a back button, it also doesn't have spell correct, or so it's easier, at least for for me, it's a lot easier to make little typos and that kind of thing. I'd rather build it in something like Word or a Google Doc and then copy and paste it over into my story map. Even though, as we'll see here very soon, there's the copying and pasting process is cumbersome a little bit, but it's still better than just trying to type it all out within the builder. So with that, let's take.
Sean, I was just curious. So that I have that introduction to story map exercise. It's in PDF. Are other people having trouble copying and pasting? I just ended up typing everything in really fast. And
oh, really?
Do other people have it as a PDF? I have it as a PDF. And so I wasn't able to copy and paste. I just typed it in. So I was curious. If other people.
I'm used to
Okay.
I'm going to try to do that right now. It might also be what your default, the way that your system defaults when it opens up your material. So if I go in here and
So you can't, okay, but I can't. Okay, I'm just curious if because it's in a PDF file and it doesn't allow me to copy and paste. So I just typed it in. Okay.
I think it's your default for what opens your PDFs.
All right.
That's something I'll have to be aware of.
Okay.
Good. Anybody else having any like kind of bumps on the road here? Good. Well, let's get back here at about 2:59. How's that sound?
So Sean, it's Rachel again. So
sure.
is there a way, like so it's a PDF and so I couldn't copy and paste anything. So I just type it in. Is there a way once my Adobe opens that PDF file, there's no, how would I go so I can copy and paste?
Oh, let's see. I would just, you can right click here. Let me show you a way that workaround. You can open with, and you can click like Chrome or Microsoft Edge.
Okay.
And you can open it in one of those, and I think you can copy and paste from that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Open with. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe open with Google Chrome. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me know if that fixes it for you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. There it goes. So if I open with Google Chrome, then I can copy paste.
Okay. Good. I'm going to remember this for future workshops that I can give people a heads up. Because that's a lot too. That's too much typing. Way too much typing.
Oh my God. Thank you.
We're supposed to have like a relaxing workshop session, not like a speed typing session.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So one thing that we have had an issue before was with people working with Macs, copying and pasting in a Mac into the story map. The last workshop, we had someone that had a bunch of difficulty with that. And the funny thing is now I experience the same kind of glitch when I'm working with a PC. So it isn't the operating system dependent necessarily in some of the things that we'll see here shortly. Good. So for the next hour, or just a little bit less than that, we are going to now build our app. Now that build our story map, now that we have a template to fall back on. So where we were at before, we should have published it. We should be good there. And once you've published it, you can just X out of that. Just make sure you X out of the right tab at the top of your screen, the story maps template, the one that you're on here. Get out of that. Let's see how many things do okay, I'm going to leave the other one up. That's where we're heading to. I put that in the chat earlier just in case you wanted to refer to it. And remember, that is at the top of the organizational document as well. So sometimes, again, it's nice to be able to toggle back and see, okay, this is what we're trying to work towards here. So let's build the map now. Now this is going to get a little bit more tricky because not only are we going to be going back and forth from the exercise, specifically for some of the directions are here simplified directions are over on the right-hand side. Specifically, the title of the map that we have. So you should hopefully have this up now. If you X out of the other one, this is the one that you should have. And now if we click on design and we scroll down and we click on browse themes, you should see the last thing that you created, the last theme that you created should be in the top left-hand corner. And we'll want to select that. So the UCANR communications theme will be what we want to have. So again, if anyone's coming back from the break and didn't catch that, we're going to our map here that should have been up on the tab at the top. Go to design, under themes, browse themes, and then you should have the option to select the last one you made. You can see V6, V5, this go back in time. So I'm selecting that one. And that's what the option, that's the one that we'll want. Good. Now we can just click off of it to have it reduce. And we will start moving forward, mostly working off of the organizational document. So I think I can save a little bit of panning from one thing to the other just by explaining it as we go slowly. I got to move my Zoom window because it's going to be in front of my text. There we go. All right, I'll put it over there. Good. So first off, we're going to go to the top of the organizational document. Just some notes here that you can read at your own leisure, just about like some tips on how to arrange things, what visual aids you might want, the layout considerations, that kind of thing, and what we're doing here. But at the top of this table, I want to just copy the title. So across the top where it's on the one side, it says the story map element, and then the input or the text. And we're going to just copy the bolded title, Control C, and then go to the story, and then Control V. And that will pop in there. Good. Now we're going to insert a photo. And the way to do that is we don't have to copy and paste anything from here. We see insert photo, title image. The way that you do that is you go on to just scroll down a little bit and add cover image or video. Click on that. And I mentioned before, it'll default to the last place that you looked for your data. So if I clicked on browse, it's going to pop up the last folder. Alternatively, though, I can go into my story map workshop folder and go to, that's not the right one. It's an old practice one. Go to the workshop media and then look for it there. And so it should be in alphabetical order. So title image. Click and just drag that in. By the way, this is very common for most web mapping applications within Esri. And then we'll click add. And you'll see it fill up the screen behind the text. Good. We can reduce down the file explorers. Now we'll go back onto the table. And what we'll be doing is we're just going to progress all the way down through each one of these steps. And they pretty much cue you to what they're asking for, and I can explain around what the directions are saying to do on the other pane. Subtitle, Control C. Click right below the title where it says the short introduction or subtitle. Control V, and then we have a little subtitle. Good. You'll also see right below there, it'll give my name, which you can change that. You can change the name, but the draft part is not going to be changed. You can entirely delete your name if you want. Draft shows that it just hasn't been published yet. It's a cue to you to let you know that this is not a published document. It's saved at the top, but it's not published, so it's still in an editing phase. Good. Now we'll scroll down a little bit and we're going to add a heading. So below here, you see this little plus sign. Sometimes you have to hover down there with your cursor just to have the plus signs appear, but mine automatically comes up. So we're going to add in a heading, and that is going to be copied and pasted from right here under heading. Control C. Now I'll show you probably what will be the first glitch, and some of you might have this glitch, some of you might not. I've never figured out why this happens. When I click on this, I click text. Ideally, ideally I should be able to click paragraph and heading and Control V, but then it reverts back to the just a regular basic text. It also glitched in a way that where it has a return space where, so I have to delete and then space to get it back into place. I said that there was a weird effect when like some kind of awkward steps you have to take with the copying and pasting, but it's still better to have it here and then bring it over that way. But it's still in a paragraph format. The way I know that is I will copy over the top of it, and you can see it has paragraph listed here. Automatically it'll pop up. Now I have to do it again. I have to click the drop down and click heading, and then it appears. And you also notice that once I did that, you see the navigation bar that's right below the top window appear with your heading. Your headings will automatically pop up in the navigation bar.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting, but I have someone who is having an issue getting, I think, back to the story map. They're seeing stories, collections, and themes, so they might be outside of a story map.
Okay, here.
Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, sure, no problem. And let's see, I am going to do this. I'm going to start a new story map tab. So if you've done that, if you've already created your themes, get back to where, just back up until your story maps, and then just create a new story map from scratch. And then once you've done that, then you will click to the right side. Once it's up, first do design, and then click over to the right to do full. And you'll get back to right about where we were at. So I'm going to go back into the story map where I was at. I know when we come back from a break and we're shifting gears from the design to this, it's going to be easily, you can easily get confused on where we're at. Good. So this is where we're at. So what we did is we designed, we set this, the navigation is set. If you've already done it, we have the logo. And another way you can do it is you can go back to your designs here, and it'll show the most recent one that was set up that I just showed you. If I back up, this is the one that's the draft that I'm in the progress of working on. So you have your options there. Good. Yeah, I just wanted to show you that just in case any of you happen to get off of the screen and have to come back to it. Good. So here we got the UCANR-IGIS Agriculture Research Center set up. We have the background, we have the navigation bar, and we have our first title heading. Good. Next, we're going to do a subheading. So I'm going to Control C there. So I'm working from the document. Usually you'll want to go to the document on the right, copy the next section, and then come in and start the text. What I'll do is I'll click the plus button and go to text again. You used to be able to do the drop down and change the subheading first, but you can't do that anymore for some reason. I'm going to Control V. Who we are, again, for some unknown reason, it's giving me a weird, like a return point. And then I have to go over the top of it and then set that as a subheading. Good. So the person, I'm going to take a little pause here for a second. Just to show you something. So no one has to do this right now. I'm going to show you. So the person that was working there, getting it set up, will have time. It's a good opportunity for me to show you two different ways to copy larger text blocks. And this is what will happen. So I'm going to copy this large text box here. Control C, plus text, and watch, it's going to have all kinds of weird, goofy, like, see, the returns are not in the right places. The spacing's wrong. This is like 2 spaces down instead of 1. So this is just, yeah, not what you want, not the easiest way. And I can't delete it all at once. I can only delete sections of it at a time. It's just really not convenient. A way around that, I mentioned before, is to bring up Notepad. You can search for that in the down on your search window. Control V, paste it all in there, and strangely, you Control C again. Control A for all, and Control C to copy, and then paste it, and it usually will come in just fine. I don't know why it's like that. It used to copy and paste just fine from here. Now you have to run it through Notepad for it to copy and paste nicely. So for anyone else, if you just want to copy and paste this text in there, if you don't want to use a Notepad, you can just go through and remove the redundant spaces. So I'll do it again. Copy from here. You don't have the option to, you can try to do type as plain text. That actually helps. There we go. That's also another solution. The plain text doesn't work so much with bullet points, but if you right click and paste as plain text, that will help you a lot. So I'll let everyone try to do that. This is supposed to be in paragraph type text, so it's fine if it's, yeah, you don't have to change any of that. Good. So good. I took that little extra time there to show you a couple different ways, make sure everyone caught up to that. Now let's go over onto the organizational document, and the bottom of this section here, I'm going to go over the top of the HTTP rex UCANR.edu, Control C, and I'm going to find the Research and Extension Center's text within the document here and go over the top of it. And then go down to the little chain link to add a hyperlink in. So you follow me there. I copied it from over on the document, the first large box at the very bottom, highlighted over the Research and Extension Center's rex, click on the link, and then Control V. But then you don't want to click outside of it. You need to click enter. If you don't click enter, it won't take. Good. All right. So we got the system, who we are. Let's scroll down a little bit and add in a quote. So what we'll do is highlight over the quote. Control C. I'm going to do an experiment here. Go and add a text box. I'm going to try doing quote, the bottom one. I'm going to right click and plain text. Hopefully it shows up, and it does. There's the workaround. Good. I'll delete one little extra space that was below the research center. That space is not really important, but just so you know, you can do that. Good. So now you have a nice looking pulled out quote. One thing that is, I wish they would incorporate in at some point, is a way to indent. There's no way to indent in most of your story map builder sections. There are different ways of using the story map builder, that you just get whatever defaulted slight indents that they give you. All right, moving down. This time, we're going to treat this text box as two different kinds of text. So we're going to take the top part first, Control C, not the bullet points. Go over here, plus, add text, right click, paste as plain text, good. Then we're going to treat the bullet points separately. What you might want to do is, and I'm going to undo this in a moment, but this is the easiest way that I found, is you back up and you delete each of these bullets first, because it's going to get confused by trying to add bullets then on top of bullets. But we delete the bullets first and then highlight over the top of these, right click, or copy, Control C, copy. Go down below and do another plus, text, bullets, bullet numbers or bullet list, third one up from the bottom. Click that, right click and plain text. And it didn't like me doing that. Control C. What the heck? All right, just paste, I guess, plain text, and then highlight all of it, and then do bullets. There we go. Then it worked.
Hey, Sean, can I interrupt for a quick
Yes.
second? Andy or Robert, could you please open a breakout session and put me and Rachel Long into it?
We're going to take a break shortly too. We have a 5-minute break here in a few minutes. And by the way, if again, I can say it again, there's nothing really builds on the last thing. If you just jump in at any point in this, you're not going to, you can just continue with what we're working on. Good. All right. So we have all the bullet points. By the way, last time we did this workshop, there was so much trouble with getting bullet points to work on people's computers. It was amazing. It burned up like 15 minutes or more of the workshop just to be able to get bullet points in there, because they're really tricky. But getting rid of them here is one step. Pasting them in as text, highlighting over the top of them, and then converting them to bullets is the yeah, that's the easiest way that I've seen to do it. There we go. Good. How's everybody doing? Sounds like doing pretty well. We'll continue like a little further. I want to get down to where we start adding a sidecar in there. Sidecar is one of those scrolling, like cascading story map elements. But first, let's put in a photo. And this is almost going to be like a separator that we're going to be adding in here. You don't always have to have just the 3 dots. You can have kind of like nice visuals across. And one of the ways to do that is to plus this and then add in an image. And click. Now you can go either browse or go down to your workshop media. And we're going to drop in the veggies image onto the map. I think that's what the directions called for. Yes, it is. Good. And then add. You'll see it show up there. It's a little bit smaller than ideal, in my opinion, as a separator. So what you can do is you can hover over the top of it. And you'll see these various options, and you can click the medium one, and then that'll stretch it all the way across your map. So what I did was I just went in, added a photo, selected the veggies from the media folder. But now I want to add in some alternate text. Again, if you're looking at that large banner of fruit on your cell phone, this might not look so well. So what we can do is go underneath the veggies where it says alternative text, Control C, copy that products cultivated in UCANR's Research Extension Center, and then go under the options, the little gear tool, And alternative text is the next one down. And we'll click Control V to add that in there. And click Save. Good. Caption, just leave it blank because we want this to be a separator. We don't want it to really, doesn't need to stand out. If you leave it blank, that little grayed out text won't appear on your final published map. Good. All right, now we are going to move on to another heading. So underneath here, we'll highlight About Kearney-Rhett, Control C. And below the fruit, we can click the plus sign and go to text. Let's try doing this as a heading. Right click and paste as plain text. There we go. We have that plain text is the way to go. So everybody get that? We just added a heading. So we just did the plus and added text about Kearney-Rhett. Next, we'll do subheading. So we'll go back over to the organizational document, just one step down at a time. Control C, location, click the plus, text, drop down, subheading, right click, paste as plain text. Good. So we got moving on to the text below this. I'm going to write, I can copy and paste, Control C. Kearney Research Extension Center is located in Parlier. Plus, text, right click, paste as plain text. You can probably all appreciate how much faster this is if you have all of your content already written out on one side. Which, by the way, is if you're working with partners on a project, you could almost, and then one of the reasons why I wanted to give this to you as a Word document is you could almost just strip out all of this information here or just use it as kind of an example and replace all of this with some other content that's related to another story that you're interested in. But you have this templated kind of layout for organization that then, say you have 5 partners in your organization or on your project, each of which might have really good input. You can gather that, get that information from them, and then you be the one that has expertise just to drop it into a nice story map and then wow them with their, or wow them with their, with how well it turns out. Good. So now we have all of these, all these elements in here, but we want to add in a map into your project. So what we'll do, I'm going to click plus sign here and click map. By the way, there's a free story maps builder that's out there for people that don't have ArcGIS Online licenses. And in that app, you don't have the option of putting in a map because it's not tied to any ArcGIS Online. It kind of, I don't know, it's not really that intuitive why it would be called a story map if you don't have the ability to bring in maps, but I guess you can use other images as backdrops. It's more of just a website builder in the way I look at it. But this is where the story map element comes in, is putting in a map. So we plus signed here below that, click map. And so just as it turns out, the last one that you created should be the first one that you see. So we'll just select that and it will pop up. Good. So you can zoom in a little bit just to set your area. Let's just kind of frame it on California and then place map. Oh, one thing before, well, this is just info only. You don't need, if you already said place map, before I do that, something that you want to allow is allow map navigation, so people can scroll around on the map. That's useful. So, but if you said place map, by default, it's already selected. It's good. Sometimes you might put in a legend, but in the context of this story map, a legend doesn't really make sense because we're going to already have it linked in the story map, like the tour map that we did, that I showed you earlier. Good. So I'll place the map. And it's a little larger than necessary. And honestly, this is going to really be about Kearney rec right now anyways. So we don't need to have all of the recs. So what we'll do is we'll go over to where it clicks on float left and click that. So then it'll hop it up to the side. And then we can click the pencil to then reframe it around Kearney rec, which, by the way, I know this, I know most of you might not, is the top of the triangle right just southeast of Fresno. So all this scroll in a little bit like this, just so I can kind of frame it so there's some points of reference for where it's at, and then place the map again. And now it's nicely framed. Going over, there's you could put alternative text if you like, because sometimes this map just won't work on the phone, or for the site impaired. So we could drag the map showing location of care, is the acronym for the Kearney Research and Extension Center. Control C. That's done under the gear. And Control V. And save. Good. Good. And then caption. Control C. And we'll put that underneath as the caption. Control V. Oops. The whole copy to pasting doesn't always work great. Good. So now I'm going to go over here to where it shows the subheading. I'm going to go over the top of that, Control C. Continue with your story. I'm going to paste as plain text, but this needs to be a subheading. So I'm going to go over the top of it and set it as a subheading. Good. So you see how, again, this is just to the left of the map that I just placed. Good. Now the text underneath the subheading, we'll copy and paste that here. Control C. Like I mentioned before, there's a lot of repetition in this. Plus text. Just regular text is fine. Paste as plain text, and then it drops down. Good. All right, let's get going again. At 25 more minutes, plenty of time. And the next thing we're going to do is add in a sidecar. It's a form of text. And the way that this works, hopefully you don't hear the barky dog in the background. I had him locked up and the kids let him out. Anyways, what I'll do is I press the plus sign below the last elements that we added in there. And you'll need to scroll all the way down almost to the bottom where it shows a sidecar. So hopefully as anyone's coming back from the break catches that. So below this, we'll hit the plus sign, scroll down to the second from last option, sidecar, click that. And we're going to go with the docked panel and click done. So when the docked panel comes up, what we'll do is we'll be adding in text on this slide text on the left and then the media on the right. We'll start off with the text. We'll Control C, the care from above, and continue the story. And we'll put this in as a subheading. So plus text, subheading, right click, plain text. Good. And then we'll add in the bullet points. Oh, remember, I have to go in here, backspace and backspace to get rid of the bullets. Control C. Over here, plus text, drop down. We can try bullets. Actually, let's stick with paragraph. It still glitches when I don't. And then right click in plain text. But then we have to highlight over the top of it again and then select the bullets, the bullet list, and delete the last bullet. Believe it or not, that is actually the easiest way to get bullets in there. You would be surprised at how difficult it is with different workflows. So there we go. We have care from above, the drone operate. This is a drone operation at Kearney. And finally, we're going to add in media. Specifically, we're going to add in embedded media. So what we'll do is over here on the right side, don't include the embedded. Sometimes people accidentally do that. Just the everything from the iframe down to the next iframe. Control C. Go over here, add media, and add embedded, the third one down. Then here, just Control V and drop in the iframe information and click add. So it'll take a moment and just click that and it'll disappear. By the way, I don't know how much horsepower or bandwidth this Around Me video has. I've noticed that it works. If a bunch of us try to ping it at the same time, it will jam up. But you'll get a chance to play with it in a little bit, which is really neat. If you click on it, and it'll allow you to scroll around your map. And see, it's working. There we go. So look, it's a three-dimensional model, or at least a near three-dimensional view of the Kearney Research and Extension Center. Good. So we've added in one type of media there. Back up so I don't forget to include those bullet points in there later. Going down, we'll add another addition to this sidecar. And the way that you do that, we go back to the center screen. So hopefully everyone has that. We'll go down, click on the plus sign down in the bottom right-hand corner. And we're going to continue with this way of viewing the data with the greenhouse operations. So we'll go over to the text, the bottom, right below the iframe information, Control C, and go to the story. Remember, this is a subheading. So we can plus text, paragraph, subheading, right click, paste as plain text. Good. Back to the organizational document. Get rid of the bullet point for a second. Control C, plus text, right click, plain text, highlight it all, and then set it up as a bullet point. Good. Now, the video, which is not really a video, it's just a PNG, image, but it says add media. But the drop down for this then is add media, image or video. So we'll click that first one, image or video. Now, either browse or bring up your media. And we're going to go with the greenhouse, the third one over. Drag and drop that on and click add. might notice that there's a couple bullets over here for some reason, and I do not know why. I noticed those appeared on my map earlier too, and they're just kind of hovering in space, some kind of glitch, if you see that. All right, so then we have one more sidecar. And then the last one, I want to show you how to put in a video. Even though this isn't really for Kearney, but what we'll do is we'll put in another plus, new slide. Go back to the organizational document. Control C for the Desert Research and Extension Center. Go over to the story plus, text, subheading, right click, plain text. Again, if this is kind of quick, then don't worry if it's off. You can always just go back over the top of it and then add in subheading. Then you get rid of the bullet points for a second on the organizational document. Right click or highlight it all, Control C. Remember, bullet points don't like to go in automatically as bullet points, so we just right click and paste as plain text and then highlight. Oops, come on. Highlight them all. And you might have to scroll down a little bit to get to seeing this, and select bullets. Delete the last bullet. Now we have all of the information there. Let's add some media. And this time we'll add a video. And if we bring up our media folder, the direct video is the second one. This will take a moment, but not super long. And then click add. If it's over, it used to not be like this, but if it's over 50 megabytes, it won't load. So while it loads, the good thing is we don't have to worry. It doesn't hang anything up. We can go on to the next steps. And when we look back, it'll be there. Good. So back on the story map here, we'll scroll down past the sidecar, and we're going to continue the story. And from here, we'll highlight the text below to learn more. Control C. And right click plain text to learn more. This doesn't have to be a heading. This is just a regular text. And then we're going to add a button. Before we add the button, let's copy the text. So see over in the organizational document under button, visit Kearney's website, Control C. And we go to the plus side then. Oh, come on. There we go. And then the second options button. And click this. And why I copy the text there first, because then I'm all queued up just to control or right click and paste as plain text. Toggle back. Highlight over the hyperlink, Control C. And then come on here, go to the pencil. And then you can add in the hyperlink. Control V. Enter. Make sure you press enter. So what I did is I added the button, copied the first set of text and pasted it on here. And then I hovered over it and clicked the pencil. And then from there, I pasted the website in and just pressed enter. Good. Let's add in a separator. So let's go click one of the plus signs. Separator is the third one down. Good. And now we're at the very last section. Great. My goal was to leave 10 minutes for this. So right close to on my plan. Heading, extra resources. So we highlight over extra resources. Control C. Go back to the center pane, plus text. This time it's going to be a heading. Right click, paste as plain text. And you notice that then that's added to the navigation options that are still hovering at the top. Good. Subheading, go over to the organizational document, Control C for other rec locations, plus text, paragraph, subheading, right click, paste as plain text. Good. I know that's hopefully that all of this copy and paste. I know it's repetitious, and then hopefully just listening to what I'm saying and you're able to kind of cruise along. Again, it doesn't matter at all if you're missing any of these steps. If you miss some element, that's okay. Just as long as you get the idea, you can always refer back to the video next week, or you can read through the directions and it'll be clear again. But yes, there's not all of these steps have to be included, including the next section where there's 9 recs, and there's no way I'm going to make you go through and do the same thing 9 times in a row. So we found that just doing it a couple times is a lot better, and that's more than enough. And if you wanted to, you could work on it on your own afterwards and add in the other 7. So again, I digress. Back to the organizational document. I'm copying the text under the other rec locations, Control C, plus text, right click, paste as plain text. Somehow the separator got moved down. I got to drag that up and put it above the extra resources. It's where it belongs. I did that, I don't know. Good. Now we're going to do a map tour. Speaking of the last section, what I'm going to do before I start it, though, I'm going to copy the name of the map. Actually, we don't need to copy that. Disregard. We're just going to add in a map tour. So we'll do plus, and it's not this map. You have to scroll all the way down to the very bottom and select map tour. This, again, by the way, is how I designed the participant locations story map that we shared earlier. From here, we'll click Start from Scratch. We'll go with Explorer. The one I did earlier was the guided. We're going to use Explorer, though. It just works a little better here. And click Next. So if you mix that, we selected the right side. And then we're going to go with the default of list and click Done. So the first thing that we'll want to do is bring in the map that we're going to be using for the tour, which is fairly easy. We're going to go into map options. So the right-hand side. So I'll back up so you can see that. Oops, I backed up too far. Expect it to go that far. Good. Here I am in the right spot. So where I was at here, I selected map options at the top right-hand corner. When I go down, select base map. So the default is this human geography light. We have all these various maps, but we want a specific map, the one that we created earlier. So browse more maps. This, by the way, is one of those places where I mentioned you could put inside of your story map another web mapping application. So you could change and put other things in your map in places like this. But for right now, we'll just pick the story map workshop, one that we created earlier. Good. This one won't let you scroll around, but don't worry about it. That's not going to be a problem. But once it's in, we just click Done. So default to that range with your map points in there. Now we're going to start creating the tour. And we're going to start off with their Desert Research and Extension Center. Go down on this slider, slide text, Control C for your Desert Rec. Control C. So on the organizational document, the very top right-hand corner, what is this page? I don't know. I think down right below here where it's the slide image, slide text, copy and paste the Desert Rec, Control C. Go in and we're going to just click on Untitled Tour Point to start with. And for title, right click, paste as plain text. We'll go over to the slide text. Next, we're just go right below that. It doesn't spell it out that much. It does in the directions, but here the slide text, we're going to visit DREC website, Control C. So Control visit DREC website, go over to description, and that's where you want to place this. Paste as plain text. And then lastly, you're going to highlight over the top of the DREC URL, Control C, the HTTP, Control C. Come back over here, highlight over the top of the Visit DREC website, and select the little chain link. Control V, and make sure you click Enter for it to take. Couple more steps. One, we'll go up to Add Image or Video and click this. Go down to the media. So we click on the, you can either browse again or you can go to your workshop folder. And Desert Rec is the first one. I'll just drag and drop that in and click Add. Good. Last step, because this Zoom is not really telling you much about DREC, what we'll do is we'll go and click Add Location on the left-hand side. And I know that DREC is down at the very southern part of California by Mexicali. Might zoom it in a little ways, not too much. You want to give a frame of reference, and then just click on that dot. And then instead of using the default tour map scale, we'll use the current zoom level and click Add Location. Good. Let's do that one more time. And that really is everything that's in the workshop, other than just adding a text at the bottom saying who created the map. So let's do it one more time. We'll do it for South Coast Rec. So this time we'll copy the title from the organizational document, South Coast Rec, Control C. Back to the map. This time I'll go down to the plus sign at the top, bottom right, kind of like we did in the sidecar above. We'll click here for the title. We can Control V, and we might have to do a backspace because I didn't do the paste as plain text. Good. Visit South Coast Rec's website, Control C. Right click, paste as plain text. We don't have to add in the map. We already have the map. So all we'll do is we'll go up and add image or video. You can either browse or other way around. I'm going to go to South Coast. It should be South Coast Rec, and click this and open it, or drag and drop them into your viewer and click Add. And you see it pop up down along the bottom, but also along the left side here. And lastly, we're going to add in a location. Zoom out a little bit, and this is South Coast Rec. So I might move over a little bit, find a zoom that I like, click on it, use the current zoom level, and add location. There we go. Now look, if I scroll up, you see how it scrolls from one to the next. It's pretty nice like that. Good. Just a little tip, if you add in another location, but you don't really put much of any kind of info in, just say the A&R Rex, I'm just randomly putting in something. Good. And then that's it. When that comes up later, it'll automatically zoom to the full scale in your map. You'll see it when it's published. It's kind of interesting like that. If it doesn't have an actual a point put down, it'll zoom back to the full scale. And the only other thing that's left in here, and I know we're at the end of the hour, and that's all, you redundantly do that 7 more times, and all you do is put in, you know how to put in a text box created by your information, and then you have a web map. But before you do that, you can do 2 things. You can preview, but better yet, let's just go up and click publish. Private's fine. Everyone's also fine. I'm just going to publish this. Go ahead and click publish at the top right-hand corner. Don't turn this off while it's publishing. Your work will have gone to waste. Now you can scroll down and see how your map looks. It's pretty nice. I don't know why those 3 dots ended up there. I probably have to go back and find a way to edit those out. Then you'll see the extra resources. You click on the way you go in here, you click on the first one and then scroll down to, oh, it went to those. Okay. So if you don't put in another point, it just scales to the last 2 you did. It scaled to the full scene when I added in all 9. I thought that was a neat effect where it jumped all the way out, but you'd have to add in all of them. And then if there was the credits at the bottom, then you'd have credits and it would be all good. Good. Does that look good for everybody? One last thing is, by the way, if this is shared to everybody when you published it, and if you would have picked everyone, you could copy this and you could send it to your mom, anyone else, and they could just bring it up on their web browser. Just like on this one, if you happen to have like some kind of site building application, like we do in A&R, you can add it into an iframe. Control V, update asset, like if you had WordPress or site builder, and then view current site. The story map will actually show up after a moment. And it'll look like a web page within a web page. Kind of a neat effect, honestly. All right, any questions? If not, we just came in at the right time. I just want to thank everyone for coming. One more thing, we will send out, if we haven't already, an evaluation form for this workshop. If you could please fill that out, we'd greatly appreciate it. We use that for our program reporting to show that what we're doing, but also we take these evaluations seriously every single time I read them, try to make improvements, try to remove those sharp edges that people have had, and smooth things out so it's easy for everybody to get through the workshop exercises. If not easy, it's a good learning experience.
Thanks, you guys, and have a great weekend. Hope you get some break time in.
Yes, have a great weekend.